Chapter 11 deals with international and intercultural public relations. And in order to be able to create effective messages, it's very eminent that you understand a number of basic intercultural concepts. And through understanding how culture influences people's perception and beliefs about the world, you'll be better prepared to build valuable interpersonal relationship with your stakeholders. You'll be better equipped to create effective persuasive messages. You'll be better equipped to negotiate with people from other cultures and to make more ethical decisions. And key terms in this chapter: ethnocentrism, premise, face, context, monochronic, polychronic, apologia, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity and femininity, individualism and collectivism, and Confucian dynamism. Many of these concepts and terms that you're already familiar with through cultural marketing studies and other cultural studies that you have done in your degree so far. But I'll go through them here and you can skip through the presentation as necessary. So, ethnocentrism is a tendency to judge other cultures in comparison to one's own and to believe that one's own culture is superior to other cultures. Every culture is ethnocentric. The challenge is that skilled communicators have to work around this to get beyond ethnocentrism in their communication and branding strategies. A premise is a proposition upon which an argument is based or from which a conclusion is drawn. And this goes back to what we covered early on in previous chapters about the syllogisms and enthymem's. An example: in a speech about the importance of a liberal arts education, arguments might be based upon the idea of patriotism, that educated people are better citizens, on ethical quality, that everyone has the right to quality education, or the value of the individual, a proper education level as a playing field. And such propositions are the premises of arguments. Argumentation is very important in speech writing, in communication in general, all sorts of communication. And face relates to a metaphor that refers to politeness, respect, pride, dignity, honor, shame. When we speak of face, we often talk about someone losing face, like being embarrassed or insulted, or about maintaining face, not being criticized publicly, not being shamed, not being put on the spot. Context should be understood as the situation. Context provides meaning and behavioral cues that guide people on how to act and how to react in intercultural encounters. Hall's work suggests that the context in which a conversation takes place will significantly influence the interpersonal and intercultural interaction. And Hall identified two types of contexts: high and low. High context cultures are characterized by a communication that is influenced by both the situation and the relationship of the parties involved. In low context cultures, communication is driven by what is actually spoken or written. Participants from low context cultures say what they mean and rely on written documents and formal agreements. Monochronic and polychronic, Hall identified these two orientations toward time that helps explain the behaviors and actions of other cultures. And we also call these M time and P time. Monochronic time involves the Northern European countries, and their system of doing things sequentially, one thing at a time. Whereas polychronic time, on the other hand, stresses involvement of people and completion of transactions rather than adherence to preset schedules. Apologia is an issue that has become important in public relations. And it's about how to publicly apologize. Formal apologies are not the same as when your mother told you to tell your sister you're sorry. When an organization or maybe even a nation does something inappropriate, the repercussions can be quite staggering. And you can't, as an organization, if you want to succeed, you cannot just go around apologizing for everything that makes somebody else unhappy. Admitting fault involves potential legal liabilities, and more importantly, no one can really know who's to blame when an industrial accident, a natural disaster, or other mishaps occurs. So formal apologies consist of everything from shifting the blame or scapegoating others to admitting wrongdoing and trying to move on. Power distance refers to the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept the power that power is distributed unevenly. Power distance is, in other words, the perceived difference between a superior and a subordinate in society. Often in the view experienced by the less powerful child, parent, employee, supervisor, student, teacher. Uncertainty avoidance refers to the extent to which the members of a culture feel threatened by uncertain or unknown situations. Uncertainty avoidance measures the ability of humans to cope with uncertainty. In high uncertainty avoidance cultures, such as countries like Greece and Portugal, stress is higher and the fear of the unknown is common. There is a tendency to conform, and there are more written rules and regulations, and there is a preference for consensus. Low uncertainty avoidance cultures like Hong Kong and Sweden are more comfortable with uncertainty and do not feel the need to have rules for everything or agree on everything. Masculinity looks at the value placed on things, power, and assertiveness, as well as the distribution of tasks across a culture. In feminine cultures like Finland and Sweden, there tends to be less gender segregation, with both men and women participating equally in work and family roles. If you remember back to consumer behavior, I mentioned this example of the Danish company Jysk that operates worldwide, and they in Sweden had to change the layout of their brochure offers, where they had a girl depicted playing with dolls and they had a boy depicted playing with a workbench, and they had to change it so that the boy was seen playing with the girl, and a girl was also seen playing with the workbench, because there was no stress on this feminine and masculine values. In masculine cultures such as Japan and Italy, there exists greater gender segregation in work and family occupations. Women tend to perform tasks associated with caregiving and raising the family, and occupations for women include nurses and secretaries, while men, they engage in occupations associated with assertiveness, like working outside of the home as managers, engineers, or hourly laborers. Individualism refers to how collectivistic the members of a culture are. In cultures with high individualism, such as America and Australia, people tend to care more about themselves, their professional success, and holding positions of power. In low individualism or collectivist cultures such as Panama and Venezuela, people tend to value family and group membership and harmony above their own interests. Confucian dynamism or long-term orientation refers to issues of thrift, perseverance, and the desire for orderly relationships with others. Confucianism, dynamism, is new and has only been measured in a few cultures. In cultures with high Confucian values, such as China, individuals who are extravagant and unpredictable are seen as suspicious and threatening to the social order. Thrift and perseverance are valued. In low Confucian cultures, such as Pakistan and America, people tend to value individualism and try to accept people as individuals rather than expecting conformity. Some cultural considerations that you should keep in mind is when you're writing. Writing for any public is the same. Requires the same skills and the same expertise. Requires different knowledge about the audience for whom you're writing, but also includes how cultural factors may influence how messages are interpreted. So you need to have a strong consideration for cultural differences. Key intercultural concepts. There are 5 problems for which cultures must find solutions. 1. What is the character of innate human nature? Are we good, evil, or neutral? A culture that perceives humans to be fundamentally good will interpret things differently than one that assumes people are innately bad. Another problem is, what is the relation of humanity to nature and the supernatural? Do we have control over nature, which is the Western view, or do we exist in harmony with nature, the Eastern and Native American view? A third problem that needs to be considered is, what is the temporal focus of human life? Is the culture focused on the past, on the present, or on the future? Again, this will influence the way that messages are interpreted. Fourth problem is, what is the modality of human activity? Do we exist for being or self-gratification? Exist to grow and achieve great things in society? Or exist to do things that can be measured? What is the modality of humanity's relationships with other humans? Is it hierarchically ordered? Do people have their own place and role in society? Is it individualistic, only concerned with themselves and their families? Or co-equal? All people are equal and their relationships should be democratically constructed. This has a bearing on how messages should be constructed and how they will be interpreted. Ethnocentrism. Every place contains multiple cultures, and most people mistakenly think that all cultures are like their own and have the same values, the same ideology. So ethnocentrism is the tendency to judge other cultures in comparison to one's own, and to view one's own culture as superior to all others. Remember again from consumer behavior, acculturation and enculturation. A premise is a proposition on which an argument is based off, from which a conclusion is drawn. And premises are built into rhetorical arguments. I want to refer you to table 11.1 to view how these arguments can be used to inform public relations messages. Understanding face is very important. when you're navigating in different cultures. Metaphors that refer to politeness, respect, dignity could be valuable to learn about. Some cultures will place more value on the way that individuals are perceived. Face impacts the way that we conduct business and communicate with others. So what role does this play in PR? Well, the role of prevention and maintenance. Prevention, making sure that a person is not embarrassed or forced to save face, and maintenance in the way that helping others maintaining their dignity and credibility. So it's very important to consider high face and low face cultures and to know in what cultures with regards to face that you are navigating. It's also important to understand high and low context. Context being the situation, the factors that shape meaning and interpretation of events and how we should react. High context, referring to the meaning and culture, not the message, is less verbally explicit and relies on subtleties. There is a greater respect for authority and it's more formal. Low context, meaning is in the message, not the culture. It's verbally explicit and more informal. Cultures have different orientations to time, M time and P time. And M time refers to the sequential, one at a time way to do things, where time is tangible and high value is placed on timeliness. P time is more has more regard for people and ideas and the notion that time is intangible, and there is lower value placed on timeliness, punctuality, mañana mañana. Apologia is the study of public apology, or how organizations can apologize. As I mentioned earlier on in the key concepts, it's more than just saying that I'm sorry. We actually already discussed some of these issues, but strategies for apology could take any of these 10 steps that are listed in the book and in the notes to the presentation. 1, attack the accuser. Turn the criticism to the person who pointed out the problem. 2, denial, saying that nothing is wrong. 3, scapegoat, shifting the blame onto some other person or organization. 4, excuse, minimizing organizational responsibility because of factors that are beyond control. 5, justification, minimizing organizational responsibility and damage to credibility by providing reasons for why the organization did what it did. 6, compensation, offering money or gifts to victims of the crisis. 7, apology, taking full responsibility for the crisis and ask for forgiveness. 8, reminder, tell the publics about the previous good behaviors and responsibility of the organization. Remind them of your good deeds. 9, ingratiation, praising the stakeholders and simultaneously remind them of how they view the good works of the organization in the past. And 10, victimhood, claiming that the organization is a victim of the crisis too. Many organizations will go through several of these, maybe all of them. Some will skip around. You can actually do crisis analysis on organizations with regards to these 10 points made here. There's no single correct response. Many will be used simultaneous or in stages. Organizations will often begin with denial and scapegoating and then progress to more accommodating strategies such as ingratiation and apology. Hofstede's cultural research I don't want to go into, other than highlighting them here. You all have studied these exhaustively, so let's leave them for that and move on to the next slide. You should consider translation issues, the importance of hiring professional translators, which can help you avoid embarrassing mistakes that might result in negative consequences for the organization. You should remember that words cannot be translated literally from one language to another, like Google Translate. The sense is lost. Translations issues can be a problem in research because words and meanings may not be the same, and expressions and cultural idiosyncrasies may not be relevant to the message, the situation. A good advice is to use back translation. So once you translate a message into a language, try to translate it back and have another person do it. In that way, you can often find out if there are any mistakes in the message understanding. When you're doing business in other countries, you should learn the language of the culture in which you'll be working. Spend time there before doing any business so you learn about the local do's and don'ts. Learn about cultural icons, heroes and villains, politicians, myths. Learn the essentials of formal interaction, bows, kisses, handshakes, etc. And also what is the appropriate for male and female interaction, and how seriously should you take social conventions. Learn about the media system, learn about the features of the culture and the language. Examine the symbolic issues of which communicators should be aware as well. You also have to consider taboos. Who is idolized and who's not, who's disdained and why. You should learn national symbols and items and ideas tied to national identity. In other words, you should know everything about the foreign cultures that you are doing business in. You should also consider some of the cultural constraints. What are the limits of the communication infrastructure? How do they use digital media? Are they as advanced as you're used to? How are people used to receive information, and what do they prefer? What way do they prefer to gain their information? This is very important. With regards to your websites, it's a good idea to have your website in several languages, which again reduces the chances for translation error by web browsers such as Google Translate. And you should also familiarize yourself with ethics, government, media relations, and bribery. Remember that every country has its own set of laws and their own media systems, and you need to find out how these media systems work and how content is different from what you're used to. Governments may more closely monitor media in certain countries. Think of Italy, where Berlusconi owns pretty much all the media channels. So here you can really talk about the hypodermic syringe of press agentry. Citizens may be more or less trusting of the media. Media in communist countries are accused of propaganda for the ideologies of the culture and may lead citizens to be more or less trusting of the media. In some nations, it's far more likely that public relations practitioners must pay journalists for news coverage. There are many cultures where bribery is the way to do business. And then, of course, it's important to remember corporate social responsibility, because I can tell you, if a Danish company um, engages in bribery just because that's the way to do business in different cultures, they will be frowned upon and they will be discussed heavily in the press. Remember that what works for public relations practice in one nation will not necessarily work in another nation. That concludes chapter 11.